What an entirely uninteresting game. Maybe not the best way to start a video for the sake of audience retention, but it's the truth. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Kraken lose 3-1 to the Toronto Maple Leafs in what may very well be the dullest game this season. Certainly one of the least entertaining games of the year. Not one of their worst. They've had plenty of games worse than this one, but that's at least interesting in its own way. There's a story there. A story you'd rather not be telling, but there's something to go off of. Versus this game where the Kraken didn't necessarily play that bad. They didn't play great either. There certainly wasn't anything notably good that the Kraken did in this game, and there wasn't really anything notably bad about it either, especially relative to the rest of the season. They didn't play great for the first two periods, but not terrible, and we've kind of gotten used to the first two periods not being the best for the Kraken, and then the third, they showed some fight back, and maybe the one piece of interest in this game does come in the third period. Maybe there's another one in the second, depending on who you are, but yeah, there just wasn't a whole lot of interesting parts of this game. It's fairly low event, and yeah, I don't know. But regardless, I suppose we might as well get through it anyway, since, well, that's why we're here in the first place, and then you can decide for yourself whether or not you agree with me about the general interest level of this game. Now, right off the jump, it doesn't necessarily help that, at least from a Kraken perspective anyway, this was an ESPN game, so we don't even get the levity of whatever hijinks or just general craziness that Eddie Olczyk, JT Brown, and John Forsling get up to with the broadcast. So without that, yeah, the play really didn't offer a lot. Getting into it with the Kraken putting out pretty much the exact same lineup from the last couple of games really. The Kraken get off to a pretty good start actually. They get right into the Leafs' end, get a couple at least attempts towards the net. I think they do get at least one or two shots on goal. Either way, nothing particularly dangerous, but it's still nice to see the Kraken as the team getting the early pressure for once. And they do end up with a power play out of it, which they get a couple more shots on net with, but still aren't able to score. And then back the other way, the Leafs quickly get a power play of their own, which they do get a couple of pretty good chances on. Decord is able to answer both of those. And then back at 5-on-5, it's Toronto against still kind of the flow of play in general that ends up opening up the scoring. The Kraken have a little trouble getting out of their own end. A bad pass, a bad breakout allows the Leafs to keep it in the Kraken end right at the blue line. And eventually that's where the shot comes from, way up in the corner, right in front of the Kraken bench. It's a shot that Decord would normally have absolutely no problem stopping whatsoever, but it still finds its way past him thanks to an unfortunate bounce off the leg of Matty Beniers on its way to the net. So again, sure, the Kraken could have just avoided all this by getting out of their own zone cleanly for once, but as far as defensive zone turnovers are concerned, this is far from the worst one we've seen even recently. Heck, they had a number of worse turnovers than this in just the second period alone in the previous game, and none of those ended up costing them. And ultimately, the shot that comes out of all of it comes from about as far away as it can possibly come while still on that side of the blue line, and there's really no traffic between the shot and Decord. He can see it coming all the way, but it hits the one possible thing it could in Beniers' leg to still find a way past Decord, and the Leafs take the early 1-0 lead. Now, really, the worst part here for the Kraken is not that they had that turnover that led to this, but more the response to it, as they kind of had been the better team up to that point, and then just fall apart really through most of the rest of the first period. Well, maybe not so much fall apart completely, certainly not like what we've seen them do in a number of other games this season, especially against some of those bottom-feeding teams where they just gave up points earlier on in the season. But the energy that we saw early on in the game where they got out to that early jump has completely disappeared, and they do pretty much fall apart completely on the power play that they get not long after this lead-taking goal, or the ice-breaking goal for the Leafs. It's a power play for the Kraken that, never mind not going anywhere, they give up two very good shorthanded chances. A shorthanded breakaway for Marner that he just ends up missing the net on, and then a partial break for, I want to say it was Tavares. Either way, that one does actually end up on net. Maybe it was Austin Matthews. Either way, doesn't really matter. It's another dangerous look from the penalty kill of the Leafs. Meanwhile, the Kraken don't even get so much as a shot attempt, I think, during this power play, and nearly give up a goal twice. But at least back at 5-on-5, they actually get one chance back themselves almost right away. Stolar is able to make a pretty good save there, back in net for the Leafs. And then nothing really happens until the Leafs end up with a double minor 4 minutes power play with 3 minutes left in the first, which the Kraken nearly kill off the first 2 minutes, but eventually with just 14 seconds left in the first 2 minutes, after having dodged a bullet early on in that part of the power play for the Leafs, Tavares putting one off the post with Decord on the far side of the crease, so plenty of net to put it into. It bounces into Decord, so that one gets frozen, but the Leafs are still able to find the back of the net. A nice shot pass from Riley finds, I think it was McMahon on the far side of the net. Challenged, so not like he's wide open or anything like that, but he's still able to redirect it into the net. Not much of a chance for Decord, and it's 2-0 Leafs, who now still have 2 minutes left of power play that'll get them to the end of the first and a minute into the second. Fortunately, the Kraken kill all that off and then get to a power play of their own not too long into the second period, which they still aren't able to score on, but this time all of the shot attempts do come in their favor, and they get a few of them, so as far as Kraken power plays recently go, a relatively dangerous one. They still don't score, but are able to get some momentum going and keep that momentum going all the way into the middle part of the second, where once again, against the flow of play, it's the Leafs finding the back of the net, and this one is just a nice tip by Nyes on the shot from, I can't even remember who takes the shot, it doesn't really matter, but Nyes with a nice tip in front of the net. Decord immediately signaled to the official that he thought it had been hit in by a high stick, and it kind of looks like it was on the first glance, especially live action. It looked like he hit it with a high stick. He goes up with the stick and then kind of deflects it as he's swinging down. They take a long time to look at it, but I gotta say, on the slow motion replay that we saw right at the end before they come out to make the official call, I think it probably was below the bar, so certainly without any definitive evidence that it was above the bar, they come out with the call on the ice stands, and it's 3-0 Leafs. The Kraken do kind of press to respond here throughout the next few minutes of the second period, but really aren't able to generate anything dangerous, kind of like with the early part of the first period. The Leafs do get one more good chance that Decord stops, but eventually, without much particularly interesting happening, aside from a Bjorkstrand fight, which I suppose I shouldn't gloss over that entirely. It is an Oliver Bjorkstrand fight after all, and something that now suddenly we've seen 2 of in this season. Heck, we've seen 2 of in the last month for a guy that fought just 3 times in his entire career leading up to this last month. Heck, we can just cleanly cut it off at the new year. Prior to 2025, Bjorkstrand had fought 3 times, and now has fought twice so far in just this calendar year, which has not taken very long. So I don't know whether it's the frustration of how the season has gone, which could definitely be a factor considering we've seen McCann take a couple of fights, Dunn take a fight. The team has gotten a little bit feistier. Certainly not a team that's known for being quick to dropping the gloves, but they have been in these last few games, certainly. Anyway, thankfully for Bjorkstrand's sake, who is not likely to have the advantage in size on basically anybody in the NHL, and as we just went over, doesn't really have the fighting experience either, he is able to survive this one and actually gets a couple of good punches in. It's not the most entertaining fight if that's the kind of thing you're into. Just kind of a draw at the end of it. Either way, the Kraken go to the second intermission, still down 3-0, into a third period where, well, they hadn't really done much to that point. Nothing bad, certainly nothing really good. At least the third period, though, is the one where they have shown some life and some fight so far this season. Actually, one of the best teams in the NHL so far this season in the third period. Just kind of the first 40 minutes have been the issue, and regardless of how they got there, they once again find themselves in a hole heading into the third. And go figure, once again the Kraken come out in another third period, down multiple goals, and all of a sudden look determined to make a game of it and try to come back, which, a few minutes in, they're able to make the first one happen, as Decord in the Kraken end just kind of shoves a puck into the corner, out to Bjorkstrand. He fires a quick pass up into the middle of the neutral zone, where he catches Tolvanen in stride. Tolvanen skates in with, of all people, Cale Fleury in front of him, kind of pushing a guy, boxing a guy away. Tolvanen uses that as a screen, fires off a quick shot, and buries it bar down and in to get the Kraken on the board. For Tolvanen, his 16th of the season, as he is still red-hot goal-scoring-wise, and in this particular game that had something to do with him being one of the few Kraken actually willing to take a shot when he had the opportunity. Something that really hasn't been that big of an issue for the Kraken this season, certainly not like we've seen in previous years, like with the Alex Wembergs of the world who just refused to shoot the puck. They would constantly overpass as a team. To be clear, the Kraken are, well, I mean, you know, they like to overpass the puck, especially in previous years. This year, they have been certainly not as bad about that, but in this game, it showed showed up again, especially in this third period. They had a number of chances to take shots off, and down multiple goals, you would think they would take some of those chances a little bit more often. There's a lot of trying to get that one extra pass, even sometimes to areas that weren't quite as dangerous as where they could have taken the shot from. Fortunately, in this case, Tolvanen does take the shot with that moving screen, finds the back of the net, which, since you've seen the final score, you know doesn't really turn out to be that meaningful of a goal other than it breaks up the shutout. But the part of this goal that is particularly interesting is that if you remember the progression of the play, you'll remember that it all started with Decord pushing that puck out into the corner to Bjorkstrand, which this wasn't one of those cases where Decord gets up and actually makes an intentional pass like we see him do multiple times a game. We know how good Decord is at getting out of the net and playing the puck, or even just playing it from the crease. In this case, he really just is kind of swiping it out to the side. But of all times, that is the one where it turns out that 2 players later, it's in the back of the net, so Decord ends up with the secondary assist here, his second point of the season, and second point of his NHL career. So, there you go. At least one fun, interesting part of the game for the Kraken. And I suppose, at least in the moment anyway, Bjorkstrand picking up the primary assist here did give him a fight and an assist in the game, which leaves him then just a goal short with plenty of time left in the game of getting the first Gordie Howe hat trick in Kraken history. That being a fight, a goal, and an assist in a single game. But in spite of a number of chances actually to do so on 2 more Kraken power plays, one of which comes towards the end of the game when the Kraken already have the net empty, so it's a 6-on-4 opportunity, and Bjorkstrand couldn't quite get a puck to settle for him right in front of the crease. I mean, he's right at the top of the crease, all alone with the puck, and just can't get it to settle, get a clean shot off. He had a number of chances, got a few shots on net, a couple were blocked on the way. I don't think he was necessarily specifically trying to be the first Kraken to get a Gordie Howe hat trick, which would make him one of the most unlikely candidates to do so. As far as skaters are concerned, kind of only Beniers and Wright I can think of as less likely players to be the first Kraken to get a Gordie Howe hat trick. I would certainly put most likely to be like the Vince Dunn or Yanni Gourde when he was playing, which, I mean, he might still play the rest of the season with the Kraken since it sounds like his injury is going to keep him out for the trade deadline, but we're getting sidetracked here. The point is, Bjorkstrand, as we know, since the final score 3-1 has already been reached, isn't able to score again. The Kraken, with those 2 more power plays, get some more chances, but aren't able to find the back of the net. And we do just coast our way to that, well, relatively uninteresting end of the game and the 3-1 loss for the Kraken, who go 1-3-1 in their last 5 games at home after that fantastic homestand back in kind of the middle part of January where they went 3-1. So again, I mean, I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you found any part of this game more interesting than I'm making it sound, aside from Decord getting a point and Bjorkstrand having a fight, I suppose those things are fairly notable in their own right. But yeah, there just really wasn't anything to latch onto as far as a story for the game is concerned. Even the things that we're focusing on now at this point in the season, like how the younger players are playing for the Kraken, there wasn't really much to go off there. Wright had some good moments and some not as good moments. Beniers in that line looked all right, but they were up against a pretty good top line for the Leafs and really weren't able to generate a ton. They also didn't really allow that top line for the Leafs to generate a ton, so I suppose defensively they did pretty well, but just certainly not the more exciting brand of hockey that we've seen a little bit more of from that line, or quite a bit more of from that line, really since Kakko got to the team, or at least a few games thereafter once he kind of got into the flow of things with his new team and new line mates. But yeah, not a ton from the Beniers line, not a ton from the right line. Obviously, Riker Evans is still out, so young players didn't really offer much as far as intrigue in this game. The team didn't play notably bad, didn't play really notably good, so you're just going off of the fun of Decord getting an assist and not much else. Let me know what you think, though, down in the comments. Aside from that, though, I don't know what more there is to say about this one, so let's close things out with the Kraken 3 stars, and we'll get to the one last game here before the break. As far as the stars in this game are concerned, as always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide the Kraken stars after every game, and to help decide the Kraken awards at the end of the season, you can help support a little bit more than you already are by supporting to this point, or watching to this point, by going to the link down below and supporting on Patreon as well. With the first star, I'll go with Eeli Tolvanen. He does get the lone goal for the Kraken in the game, and he continues to produce offensively, so yeah, not a terrible pick, especially considering what I said about the Kraken having a little bit more of an issue actually shooting the puck when they had the opportunity, and Tolvanen, one of the few players that was actually willing to do that. Second star, there's two guys with an assist in this game that I think are going to be second and third star, but I'll go with the second star being Oliver Bjorkstrand, another guy that did seem fairly willing to shoot the puck when he had the opportunity to, just not as many of them ended up on net. A few of them blocked, a few of them went wide of the net, and he had the one there at the end of the game with everything to shoot at. They just couldn't get the puck to settle in time, and I can't remember if he got a shot attempt off or not, but it didn't end up on net even if he did. Still, he ends up with the primary assist and a fight, so comes that close to the first Gordie Howe hat trick, which eventually will happen for the Kraken, but considering they really don't fight that often, it might still take a while. And then with the third star, got to go with the other guy with an assist in this game, and also played pretty well in net for the Kraken as well. His second career and point of the season, Joey Decord, with another game where he ends up back up at a 900 save percentage after those three goals in the first half of the game, doesn't allow another one. The Leafs continued to get shots, but he wasn't allowing another one past him. It helped that they didn't get another lucky bounce to go past him, but either way. Once again, though, as always, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you felt differently about this game or who your 3 stars would be. Tanev is another guy that got mentioned over on Patreon that, at the very least, Brandon Tanev, to be clear, not Chris, who was also playing in this game, his brother now playing for the Leafs. He is very clearly one of the players on the Kraken that is still playing with passion and clearly still cares about what he's doing out there. Now, whether or not it's because he's trying to make himself look good so he can get traded somewhere or what the case may be, he's still flying around and making things happen. A little bit chaotic at times, but it's better than what they're getting from some other players, and certainly more consistent. That, though, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy the video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that help support the channel, so I'd appreciate you using them. Something I haven't actually said in quite a while for whatever reason, but it's still true. And until next time, with one game left until the break, and I will have a little bit of a break. We got a vacation coming up here, so there won't be any videos for the first half of the break, but once we get back, with the Kraken will still have a week, I'll get a couple of things out there, maybe what the Kraken will do at the deadline, that kind of stuff, and I have some ideas, some ways to spend time. I'm still way few months now overdue on the last hockey history video, or not the last one, but the next one, number 6, so yeah, there's some things that'll be coming out here in the second half of this break for the Kraken, but we got one more game between now and then against the Flames, and until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.